you so much for coming along tonight, and welcome to the first Music New South Wales workshop of 2014. Music New South Wales, if you're not sure who we are, we're the peak body for contemporary music. So we represent musicians and the music industry back to the government, and currently we're working really hard on working on these lockout laws. You might have seen a campaign called Keep Sydney Open, and that's something that we're running at the moment. So anyway, we do lots of cool things all the time, and sign up to the newsletter, jump on our Facebook page and come along to our events, and we're always really eager to hear suggestions from you guys as well. Anyway, that's enough boring stuff. I'm going to pass you back to Jolie. Thanks again for coming along, and have a great night.
Yeah, so thanks so much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. It's not the nicest nights to be out, but it's probably nice to be sort of in here cosy with a drink with a bunch of people you don't know, so hopefully you'll have a good time. But I'm just going to basically get our panel to introduce themselves and what they do and where they come from. So, and then after that I'll ask them some questions, and then at the end of the session we'll get you, if you have some questions of your own, you're more than happy to ask them. So I'll start off with Danny at the end of the couch there.
My name is Danny Yao. Currently I'm working as the head of digital for everything related to music at Foxtel. I worked for record companies for far too long before that, doing mainly digital stuff. That's me, where I come from.
And I'm Vanessa Picken, everyone calls me Van, and I run a company called Comes With Fries, and I specialise in a suite of marketing and digital services for creative industry, so music, food, fashion, and all things above. And like Danny, I've come from a record label background, many years there, and also before that, technology, so T-Mobile in the UK, and also Nokia before that. Not showing my age at all.
Don't worry, I'll remind.
Name's Jake Challenor, Director of Jaden Social. So we're a boutique digital and social media marketing agency that specialises in music.
Thanks. My name's AL-ATTAS. I run a social marketing company called One, and before that I ran an indie label for 10 years, and that's how I met these guys, because EMI ended up acquiring the company a few years ago.
I guess sort of to start the night off, we might ask a pretty obvious question that I might start with you, Danny. Gonna start. What is digital marketing? I guess is the first question, if you could explain a little bit about it.
Digital marketing is obviously a lot of what we do online. It really developed a lot when I started in the industry in about 2001, because things were going online. My first job was at Warner's at the new media department, basically in 2001, preparing for this thing called iTunes to come to Australia. Since then, that department's been turned into a digital marketing department, and it's about it's marketing. It's getting your information out there to people as much as you can through these new services, which work so much faster than traditional print and radio or whatever it is. And you can do more. It's multimedia. You can do a blog post that streams an entire album. You can play a 40-minute video embedded into your articles. You can run ads on that. So all that new world is what these departments are about.
Great. Can I just jump in there as well?
Sure.
I think a big part of it for me is about that conversation, that flow, and really understanding who you're talking to and getting their rapport back and getting that engagement back. So anything that you're doing from a marketing perspective, be it creative, being in advertising, it's all about engaging and finding out how you can connect with that person. So, it can be your offline activity brought online and vice versa. It's just basically everything. And I think it's amazing how new media has evolved into digital marketing, and now it's basically marketing, and how it's all in one, really.
I definitely agree with that. It's one of the things where in the next 3 years we're going to lose the idea of digital. Everyone who works in music I know who's a marketing manager has digital such a part of their job these days. They're booking as many YouTube pre-rolls as they are TV ads, and it's a thing that I've been looking at. It's almost I always relate it to gay marriage, strangely enough. Right. We're going to get to a point in the next couple of years.
Mardi Gras weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to be relevant. In the next couple of years, we're going to lose that first word in the term gay marriage, because marriage just encompasses more than that. And I think in the same way, we don't call it online banks. We just call it a bank.
Banking, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to lose digital.
Cool. I guess, what are some of the advanced PR tools used in the digital world? Jake?
There's lots of tools that I suppose that are out there. Some of the advanced tools that we might use are more probably metrics based, but then I suppose you can look at even platforms as tools in a way. I think the main kind of tools that we use though are around metrics and managing engagement. So things like maybe Hootsuite. Twitter platforms that connect and build audiences like Twiz. There's a whole range that various digital marketers or marketers use on a day-to-day basis.
I guess the next question I have is just about music distribution, digital distribution. How do you get your music ready for distribution? And what is digital distribution?
I'll put my hand up for that one.
Cool.
Because I do a stack of independent releases. So depending on the artist and depending on what they're looking to put out, I pretty much just do a full DIY way in which I work with the artists. And that could be anything from a baby band through to someone like Cole Chisel, who've done some international stuff with Cat Empire, Eskimo Joe. It's all independent. So depending on what you need to get out of getting that release up there's some really great companies out there like TuneCore, which is a flat fee, like $10 for a single. You retain 100% of your royalties. All you need to do is upload some artwork. They've got template files if you need to. You can pretty much just upload a really high quality WAV. And the good thing about that is if it's not great quality, it'll reject it at that present point in time. So whatever gets through to the store, you're not actually putting out a poor quality product to the consumers. So TuneCore is a really great one. CD Baby, they take commission base off the back of it and got a different reach. So you've really just got to go through the pros and cons of and they're called aggregators. So they're just the people that take your product and put it onto an iTunes or a Spotify, etc. So it is as cheap as $10 for a single for a year. So it is pretty affordable to kind of get your music out there.
And what platforms does TuneCore get you onto?
TuneCore, I think their count is around 30 odd, so everything from your Amazon MP3 if need be, your iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Mog, all of the kind of streaming services, and even down to some of the smaller boutique ones, like Rivera's just starting to come here. They've just announced those guys as one of their platforms, and they constantly just add stores. So all you have to do is go in there and add another store for $1 if need be, or whatever the conversion for US dollar is, and you just can keep extending that reach of where your product's placed. And then outside of that, if you want to sell direct to your fans, then you use like a Bandcamp or something like that and actually just sell directly, retain 100%, they take a small commission. But it's all about just you retaining as much profit as possible.
I guess my next question was, if a client comes to you, say with $100, sort of, can you offer them a service? Can you get them started? Can you give them a bit of advice? Or
I think the first thing that people should do is just those big services that everyone's heard of: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Just get on there. Twitter's always the weirdest one. I know so many people who hate it because there's a lot of noise and not very much signal, but there's a lot of people having conversations there, and it's free to sign up to those things. And then it's free to ask your friends to follow you, as much as it is free to ask your friends to come see you play at a really small pub when you're starting out, and then just to get on the board, essentially. And everything that you do, when you send a video out there to the world, you should be linking back to at least a website, or if you don't have a website, of Facebook or somewhere where you can capture the audience that sees all the viral content you put out there. And that is free. That's something that we can do that we couldn't do 10 years ago. And you can build a pretty big audiences, and we've all heard those stories of those bands who've done that, whether it's 50 or 1,000 or more. You take the Goite example, where that guy, he paid for that video, but that video went way further than any video should have from Australia. You can do that, and it doesn't cost anything, let alone the $100.
I would actually spend that $100 of you taking some time off work just so you can actually sit there and do some work on your actual band.
Right.
That's what I would recommend them.
Yeah.
I
I guess what I was sort of trying to say too was, some people don't have a lot of money to start something up, and compared to other people, so they've got the opportunity to...
Yeah, Van also mentioned Bandcamp, which I love at the moment. I don't know if everyone here knows it, but it's free to play and you can sell your stuff straight away. And so many bands are on Bandcamp. So if you haven't heard of that, I really recommend it. Like, I tell most bands to get on there because, and there's, you might get signed to a label and they might have problems with you being on there. You can always take it down afterwards, but there's no reason why, if you're a band that exists and have music recorded, if someone finds out about you and they want to buy it straight away, you can do that with Bandcamp, and it's free again. So.
You can also utilise their tools, like they can do, streaming, you can do free singles, you can do kind of pay what you want. There's all these different modelling that you can use with Bandcamp. So it's a great way if you want to build a newsletter, then give your single away for free or your remix for free or whatnot, and you can actually use that and contain your music within one platform.
Okay.
And all by getting an email address.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Great. I guess my next question was back on social media. Is it enough just to have a Facebook page, Twitter, YouTube account, LinkedIn profile? Do you need more than that? And I guess you've sort of answered that.
Yeah, I especially
that's a good start, I guess.
If you're at a point where you're struggling to find time to do it, I think then that is a great start. It is a bigger start than a lot of bands out there have ever gotten before.
Yeah.
You can potentially reach, thousands and thousands of people.
Global.
Well, you can reach 1.23 billion people if everyone on Facebook sees it. But yeah, it's such a way of connecting with an audience. And the great thing about Facebook is that it's so great for niche things as well. Like, you can be anyone and start a Facebook page with any interest, and you can find the people who might like it.
Yeah, because I guess my next question was sort of talking about the different types of messages you can get through, the different social media platforms. Do you use Twitter in a different way than you would use Facebook? What kind of language do you use, and sort of how are the messages different?
Yeah, definitely. I think each social network or channel has its own language. So it's important to spend some time familiarising yourself with, with Twitter and Facebook, etc., and really figure out how conversations take place, what kind of, what the different ways that you can communicate and engage, with your fans on those platforms. And just going back to the earlier question, I think too, if you do have a limited budget, and I know a lot of artists don't like marketing themselves, but for those that do, there's so much great content and education that's online. If you really want to figure out how to do it on a budget because you can't afford for someone else to do it, or you don't have a label, jump on Google and start learning, because everything you need to know is there.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I kind of, every time a client will ask me a question about it and I know that's on Google, I just say Google it, because I'd prefer not for them to waste money on asking me that question when they can find it in literally 2 seconds.
Yeah, right.
The other thing I'll just add to the social media part is, as far as which channel should a band be on, I think it's more important these days because there's so much noise out there to be really selective. So if you're going to be on Twitter, for example, why are you going to be on Twitter? You should ask yourself, why are you going to be in each platform? If you've got nothing interesting to say, maybe Twitter isn't the best platform for you. You'll notice that there are certain bands that, I think Grinspoon's kind of a good example where, I think Phil has more followers than the band itself, because he's way more interested in engaging to follow than the band. So you've just got to kind of you've got limited time, you've got limited resources, and kind of look at the platforms, look at your audience as well. If you're a band like that, kind of what's that band, 5 Seconds of Summer, right? Perfect for Twitter, right? That band's
Snapchat.
Perfect.
They're all on
Snapchat, yeah.
Look at where your audience is and make the choice. Don't try and be everything to everyone, because you don't really need to.
And I totally agree with that. It's straight away, it's what is your platform? Where are you going to be online? How are they all going to work together? And just be dedicated to them rather than just spreading yourself too thin, because I can guarantee you will then not update any of them, or link your Facebook to your Twitter, and it's just the same message that goes out and there's no engagement, and you sit there and you go, digital marketing's not working for me, why? And it's just because you need to step back, have a strategy, work out how you're going to say it. Who's got a voice within the band? That's a really great way of going, okay, who's going to tackle Twitter? I've got nothing to say, clearly. So
no, you haven't.
Twitter, but maybe.
I think the other thing that you should look at as well, if I'm a band and I'm looking to connect with an audience, that's great. So I'll be where's my audience? But the other thing is how am I going to connect with people that are going to actually help my band? So if I'm trying to find a manager or a label or an agent, if you've got a favourite record label, Google them, find out who runs the label or who's in A&R, see if they've got a Twitter, follow them and start engaging with them and start a conversation. It's never ever been easier to actually get in touch with these people. So that's the other way I'd look at it, is try and find these people to actually connect with that can potentially help your band go to the next level.
Yeah. But that's the same with all the PR side of things. Getting your own kind of marketing out there from a DIY perspective, everyone's got a contact us section, a submission section. So you can actually send them some material to take a listen to. Be quite selective. So find out the reasons why you would actually contact this blog in the first place. What kind of, potentially are they doing a radio playlist or are they doing videos only? And have a conversation with them directly. And it's the best way to kind of, do your own kind of publicity, really.
Yeah. How do you how much do you think Facebook likes and Twitter and Instagram followers translate to people sort of actually being committed to your act or your project? Jake, anyone?
I think this is a real issue because the industry is still very much focused on how many followers you have or how many likes you have or whatever it might be, smoke and mirrors, perception, all that kind of stuff. But what really matters is your engagement. So, if you've got 1,000 likes on Facebook, for example, what really matters as a basic metric is how many people are talking about your page. And that gives you a really good indication of of how many people who are actually connecting with you. You can have all the likes in the world, but unless they're engaged, it's worthless.
Right. And especially with the kind of, sorry Danny, the reach on Facebook being so, gotta be quick man, being so limited, like, the percentages that they're floating around like to 15% of, every post goes through to like the whole base of. So, by you having that kind of reach and engagement will actually increase your share of voice and actually will hopefully lift that post to more people out there within Facebook. So you really need to have that engagement to kind of make any kind of dent on Facebook whatsoever.
I agree with all that. I just think you mentioned it, right now we still care a lot about metrics, and if you had 1,000, if you were the best band in the world and you had 100 Facebook fans, and if you were a terrible fan and you had 10,000 Facebook fans, the second band will get into more doors.
You're right.
Yeah, and
right
booking
now,
agent won't pick you up either.
Yeah, and so that is kind of important when you're presenting yourself out there. YouTube views, Twitter followers, and when you're playing gigs, you should be pushing that number as well.
Yeah,
because
I mean, there's artists that have 300,000 views on something and they can sell out 5 Northcote Social Club on one song. Exactly. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's pretty important.
And every A&R manager in the country, every A&R manager in all countries look at it now.
Exactly.
And every booking agent and stuff. That number is it's a brutal shorthand, and there are ways that number can be cheated, and you can't, and you can look after your Facebook page well and not well, but that number does get you through doors.
Yeah,
it does.
Do you think there's still a place for email mailing lists like MilliChamp? Do you think they're still useful?
Yeah. MailChamp,
yeah. Sorry, I must have mistyped that.
Number one, like one of the hands down first things tools-wise that I tell people to kind of just sign up. It's free for up to 2,000 people. You can build templates within rather than having to get one coded. You can manage it yourself. It's just so easy. And the more you can build your newsletter, the more you can actually build a direct relationship with that fan and bypass the passiveness of Facebook or, the lack of ability on Twitter if you're not necessarily strong on that platform. So I think for me, outside your dedicated website, email is just core to kind of obtain, because you can sell directly, you can market directly, you can hear directly. So.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if someone is opting in to your newsletter, like, they actually give a shit about what you're going to say.
Yeah.
As opposed to Facebook likes are so easy to passively click like. It just...
Yeah, exactly.
Not everyone there's really that interested.
Just do it and then forget about it. Yeah. What about haters on your social networks? Do you delete them or leave them?
Diffuse.
Any?
We're talking about trolls here. Is that what you meant?
I don't know.
Cyberbullies. Yeah. We manage quite a few. It's becoming a bit of a problem on Twitter for some, especially if you've got a big profile, I suppose. They come after you, and I suppose they're all connected. Just block them. easy as.
See, I diffuse. I kind of always advise people to actually respond to that person and turn them into a fan, because people want to go out there and hide behind their computer and hate.
It's very easy
If
to
you
do,
turn
yeah.
around and go, I love you, you're amazing, and these are the reasons why I'm doing it, and I'm a passionate person, and I'm a musician, this is my craft, blah, 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 you'll find that actually they may come around. And if they don't, you can kind of ignore them. But at least the rest of the people around you have actually seen you taken time out of your day to actually address that. And
Killing
I
them
think
with
people
kindness.
respond to that
Yeah.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Let me present a third option, which is just ignore. I think, because there's always, and I've worked with so many bands where someone just says, wow, that new single is so terrible, and they tag the band, or that new album cover's terrible, or whatever. And it's sometimes hard, but I've spoken to many artists that they feel like they want to address that. But at the end of the day, no artist in the world has ever needed to justify what they put on their album cover. You don't need to justify it to some little shit who's tweeted it at you.
Yes.
You don't need to answer to that. You stick by your guns, and there's always going to be someone who doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Learning to accept that, I think, is a tougher challenge. When we're also all growing up with Twitter and easy to just respond, especially when someone says something rude to you or takes a shot at you at something that you're really proud of.
Yeah.
But to some degree, you got to remember that you'll want to talk to these people, but you don't have to answer to them.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts, Van, maybe on what the next major form of social media mass communication will be?
See, for me, I just still feel as though messaging, it's all mobile based, so it's kind of, if you can kind of drive some, mobile numbers, sign-ups, talk directly to them, make sure that you're working the mobile and the convergence of devices correctly. I feel as though mobile is definitely something within a short period of time is actually a really smart marketing direction to take. I've got some great ideas for things like Snapchat, depending on the target audience and whatnot. The whole WhatsApp development that's coming out of Facebook. Even Shazam has just kind of announced they're going to be more of a content-based platform, so that's going to be interesting to see what comes out there. But, everything that I'm seeing and all these companies that are getting snapped up, it's all about data. So people want to know, what you're doing, because that knowledge is king. So, data for me is the power behind everything that's coming out there.
You guys agree? Pretty much?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jai, do you want to give me an example of what you've seen when social media is used wrong? Is not done correctly?
I'm going to touch back on a point then that we were talking about earlier about as far as numbers are concerned. It's probably because the music industry is never as for lack of a better term, as fully formed as other industries. But with, say brands, for example, that are paying people to do tweets or Facebook posts on their behalf, brands have now caught up with social media where, say, for example, Sonny Bill Williams has 200,000 Twitter followers, and Reebok says, okay, Sonny Bill, we want you to tweet about our new shoe and we'll pay you $50,000. The brand or the agency that commissions him to do this and will no longer just go, oh, we're stoked that you've got 200,000 followers, here's your $50,000. They'll look at the engagement that he gets back. So, yes, maybe major labels and booking agents and stuff are looking at numbers and just going, oh, cool, they've got 10,000 fans. But it really is, and now because we've got so many tools from Sprout to all these metric tools that you can see the exact engagement that post gets. So it's so easy for any of your bands to go and buy 5,000 or 10,000 Twitter followers for a couple of $100 these days. I recommend staying away from that, because if you have 100,000 Facebook fans that you've purchased and every time you do a post you get 3 likes, people know that there's something fishy going on, or no one cares about your band.
It's kind of like the ARIA charts when record labels tend to go and buy stuff just to get the chart. Really?
Not anymore.
No.
But no, I agree with you, Jai, but I think that, a band in this day and age who focuses on building an audience.
As long as it's real, it's organic.
It's real.
Great.
But I still see a lot of bands out there, especially young developing ones, and I talk to a lot of them who... and that's fine, because a lot of bands don't want to market themselves. They don't put Facebook and YouTube and things in front of mind, and that's fine. A lot of bands are never going to do that. But then I see young bands as well who do that, and they're building audiences really, really quickly, and they are playing to slightly bigger rooms at a faster rate, and they're opening more doors. What you do once you get in that door is up to you.
It's up to you, yeah.
You might have had a couple of opportunities to play some big shows and got a lot of fans, but then you've got to engage them with content. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, 5 Seconds of Summer are the perfect example.
Oh,
A band that...
no product out.
Yeah.
Covers only on YouTube.
Yeah.
$1 million deal.
Yeah, they just built their audience organically, and it was a real audience. So all of a sudden, every major label wants to sign them. Doesn't matter what they sound like,
Yeah.
because they know straight away when you release something, you're going to be talking to way more people than one of them major acts are going to be able to speak to through social.
Yeah. The power of screaming girls.
Hey, whatever rocks your boat. Can I ask you, Van, a question? Like, what are the steps that you take with a new client in creating and executing a successful digital marketing campaign?
So I always start with very much a sit-down Q&A, trying to extract what they actually want to achieve, from the strategy or the work that I'll be doing with them. And it's amazing if you go to a band or someone and say, what's your strategy? People go, oh, I don't know, like straight away. So, those barriers of terminology and, format and, rigid way of marketing, that's just kind of what I do with the information I get. So I purely start with a Q&A, like, where do you want to be? What do you want to sound like? What do you want to get out of this? How do you want people to perceive you? And it's literally just a power dump for an hour of power of me just Q&Aing them and find out everything that they want to. And even things like, if I had to Google you, what are the top 10 things that I would put in Google to find you? It's just simple tools like that to really get them to brain dump what they want to get out of it. Then I go away and devise a service for that, whether it be a consult or a full marketing strategy or a marketing plan that I deliver that they then execute. Or then I go the full kit and caboodle, which is doing all of that and then project manage the whole entire release, because I've come from a label background, so I can label manage. So with each of those, I always follow the same process, and within that strategy, it's all about trying to create objectives as to what they want to get out of me and doing it their way, not the way in which I try and push onto them. I try and use all my knowledge of how to navigate the world of labels and release processes, try and throw a little bit out of the box, because you don't have to go out there and release a single, release an album anymore. It's so much more fun and creative to kind of deliver what is right for your band for this release or what you're trying to achieve. So I kind of come from it from a really basic level and build and then deliver from that point.
And Jake, what about at Jaden Social? Is it similar or?
Yeah, very similar. We spend as much time with the artist and the stakeholders as we possibly can, whether, there might be a manager or a label, or sometimes it's just the artist, and really get to know them. And it can take time to figure out exactly what their objectives are, because often they don't know, so it's a process to get there. And then we'd go away and have a workshop, and we'd sit down and look at each individual channel, Tumblr, Facebook, Snapchat, Spotify, whatever it might be, and figure out are those channels relevant, and how can we maximise those? What's our strategy going to be there, and build that into a plan over the campaign period.
I actually find a lot of people that because I work really closely with a lot of independent artists, and by nature of having a lot of label friends, can upsell from that perspective. But a lot of it is just basic tools that they just don't even know where to start. And it's like, what are the free tools that are out there in each area that can kind of get me started? And like simple tools like we're talking about, just a newsletter and where are your platforms, websites, like how do I build a free website, that kind of stuff. There's just a real simple tick list that I can hand off for them to go and check out that they don't need me to tell them about, because it is all available if they just Googled it.
Yeah.
But there's some really good kind of 101 tools that I just kind of go, here you go, this is what I think is right for you, and that's kind of one of the first steps that I deliver back. Also timelines.
Yeah.
Timelines
Helpful.
are killer. A lot of people go, I want to put this out next week, and then I want to do everything and all of the above. It's like, you need planning, you need to kind of, a good couple of months, get all your assets together, get the plan together, be strategic, and then go.
The only thing I'll add is that some bands are really just don't have. Well, look, no one picks up the guitar to do email templates.
Yes.
So sometimes bands know that they have to do this, and they'll talk to someone like Van, myself, or Jake about this, and over a beer or whatever. But sometimes I tell people that, look, find someone who's a friend who maybe want to be a manager one day, or just plays in this world a little bit more, and get them to help as well. Because we all know a friend who's good at this stuff, and it's probably not. Okay, I'm going to say it. Probably not the drummer. So, it's... yeah, I know, I'm kidding. But, it's just that sort of thing where bands don't really get into... It's a weird thing that we ask of bands in this day and age, that market yourself and be a band, and
Yeah.
they're kind of two different talents. Some people do it really well, and those artists are the greatest in the world at the moment. The Katy Perrys, the Justin Bieber, who are so great at that.
Yeah.
They are really rising top of the pack because of what they do in this world, in their social media space. But
The Kylie
ask a
Minogues
friend.
of the world.
Kind of knows.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. But yeah, asking a friend is.
Yeah.
Just on that point as well, also if you're in a band, go around and find out what everyone's skills are. Someone may want
Right.
to be the manager for the first 6 months, and then their job is to go out there and, be that manager, and someone may be the social media person, someone may be, the photographer or the
Yep.
videographer. Like, find out who could do what and work to your advantage rather
Yeah.
than just assuming everyone's going to do everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you do need to have set out. Can I ask a quick question, just with regards to sort of researching digital marketing and, putting my hand up because I don't know a lot about it. SEO comes up quite a lot. What does that mean?
It's search engine optimization.
Right. Sounds
just-
very technical.
Well, it is, to try and make it not sound technical. Google are just one of the biggest companies of the world. 44% of all ads that we see in the world is Google. They just made $50 billion last year on advertising revenue alone. So SEO companies are people who understand how to work Google. I have one that I work with at Foxtel who basically spend their time monitoring what keywords are working and not working when it comes to search, and then we buy ads against it. So right now, festivals is probably a really expensive word to buy because because Soundwave just happened, Big Day Out just happened, Future's about to happen. So to market against that word is high. So in terms of how it works for bands, it's kind of weird. It's more something for labels and media companies, because your band really has one search term, which is your band name. And if you can own that, then that's all the real SEO that you need to make sure that you come up really, really high up on the search when someone searches your band name.
Yeah, like a good example of SEO being used is like online travel companies. So if you think of like Expedia and Booking, so if you're in Sydney for a night and you go places to stay Sydney, Expedia and Booking and Kayak and all these websites are vouching for that number one spot on Google, and that's what SEO is. So they pay a ton of money to SEO companies to get them that number one search spot based on those key terms. For a band, unless if you were like a skate punk band, and someone typed in who would ever do that? I don't know.
Who's that? That's you? You are there. Thank you so much. I have done with my questions. So if anyone in the audience has any questions for our panel, it's time. I'll give you a microphone if you want to stand up and yell it out, or put your hand up, whatever you would like.
There you go.
Take advantage of these guys and their expertise. Thanks.
There was a mention for MailChimp. Somebody said after getting the website done, MailChimp is one of the most important things, but there's not a lot of talk about websites actually within this. And I was just wondering, how does that sit? I mean, a lot of people don't even bother with that after having their Facebook page up. So, I mean, how does that rank?
I think the website is still really important, but like any social network, any social channels, you've got to have a strategy for it. And if it's just static, then just put up a really good landing page with the video, links to your socials, and keep it simple. If websites are your thing, spend some time maybe to develop that and create a better experience. I think the most important thing, if we're going to talk about websites, is that it be responsive, so mobile friendly. Over to you, Danny.
I've built a lot of websites for bands. There's two main things to think about. One is that it's better for holding information than social. I mean, you're not going to put your tour date. You can put your tour dates up on Facebook, and in a week, it's too far down the page for anyone to care. So so think of it as a place for people who actually like you a lot more than just liking you on Facebook.
Superfans.
Yeah, superfans, yeah, definitely. That's one way of thinking about it. Two is that you've got to have that strategy. And for most bands, it's sales. You look at Bob Dylan's website, you look at Justin Bieber's website, you look at Muse's website. They're three examples of bands that actually have a $sign in the front page. It's click to buy the new product. They will never, 99% of people going to the Justin Bieber website don't need to go and explore the great discography that you've designed with all the single B-sides. They're just going to lead into a sale. So sales is a really good one. Engagement, if the front of your page is covered with watch videos or sign up to Facebook or sign up to our mailing list, that's a really good strategy. But whatever you're doing at the very front of your page, it's got to be your goal. Like, that's the goal that you would sit with someone like Vanessa to work out, whether it's selling albums, building up an audience, getting people to come to a tour. That's really the main thing of it. Whether you have lyrics or a photo gallery after that, as someone who builds websites, doesn't matter to me.
It really is just a central destination because everything else is so fragmented. So people can find you and everything about you in one location, and you can then work your strategy, your peripheral social strategy from that point. So you need to kind of allow people to cut through that clutter and that fragmentation to find everything about you.
And you're using your social channels to push people back there. Yeah. So if you're selling a bundle, you're pushing people back to the website. If your tour goes on sale, you're sending people back to your website. Constantly sending people back there. And you get to own your information. You get to own your bio, you get to own your photos, not just like, Google Images and Wikipedia. You're owning everything.
And it's good for SEO.
Right. Anybody else? Question?
Would you say it's worth using things like Wix and WordPress then, or actually buy your own website?
Wix is easy, templated, cheap. Like Verb, cheap as well. It's like $10 a month. There's an amazing amount of free platforms that are out there to build your website on. And if you can work a templated website, it's a really great entry point before you build the kit and caboodle. So I always kind of go, try that area and then build from that point into WordPress, etc. Just on that, if you're a band that is, within certain niches as well that can really sell, like, merch and any kind of collateral that's, those kind of like heavier rock or hip hop or kind of dance where you can actually really sell merch, start with something like a Shopify, because they actually build a front on top of the shop. So there's different options to take which way you go to build that entry kind of level website.
But yeah, I think the point is that it's not hard to do and it's not expensive to do either. So.
Anybody else? Questions? No, Em?
Is SEO important when you're thinking about a band name? Say you're going to call yourself Good Band or something like that?
That's actually a really good question.
They're a good band too.
I've stumbled upon this a couple of times. One of the bands that we look after is the Baby Animals. So you can imagine trying to search Baby Animals in Google. So that's presented a real challenge for our SEO guys, and that's why having a domain name and that domain name obviously being really active has really helped. If I was starting out again with the BAs, I don't think we'd be choosing the name Baby Animals.
Right.
Yeah, I like, you look at the big companies, they deliberately choose words like Deezer and Spotify because of that thing, right? Because they're unique words. And yeah, there's a lot of bands out there that I like that I can't find. We did a thing on Channel V where we were looking at the names of every single Australian artist we played to do a big promotion, our Big Oz Artist of the Year promotion. And I had my guys go through this list of hundreds of bands and then try to just see how many fans they had on Facebook. Just a simple report, someone had to go through and look at all of them. Like, we couldn't find 20 of them. Like, these had released
on
videos.
Facebook you couldn't find them?
We just couldn't search for them. Like, it just took too hard. Facebook is a lot harder to search through than Google. And these bands either had no profile on Facebook, or they just had band names that were 400 other things came up first, and my guy wasn't going to sit through and find it, let alone anyone who hears your band.
Spelling's a big thing as well. Like, Accommodation has 13 misspellings in the rankings. So if you have a band, even a name like Sam Clark, is that a Clark with an E or no E? Or, just bloody flicker, no E. All of these kind of combinations, make sure that you're tagging these incorrect spellings so that if anyone's trying to find you and aren't the best spellers, which is pretty much majority of us now because we've got spell check and devices that auto preview everything for us and we just select it. So just kind of think about, if you had to go in there and Google, make sure you've got those misspellings accounted for as well.
Yeah.
The other thing you want to do is, where possible, try and get the .com.
Yeah.
Like the straight .com. If If you can get the .com, it's better than getting the .com.au. Get that as well, but start with the .com. So yeah, whatever you're thinking about calling your name, just search it. Go to like GoDaddy.com and you can see what's available and stuff, and just keep trying stuff, and doing that with a Google search will help you come up with your internet band name.
Anybody else? No? No? Oh, yep.
Is there any kind of company that does some sort of like plugging for videos, for video clips on YouTube and stuff, like, you know, to kind of help it come along?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
There's most radio pluggers do it. I think there's certain pluggers that specialises in specific niches as well, or verticals. There's actually quite a few out there. There's a lot, and they just specialise in video.
Any names?
I can give you some after. Sure.
It used to be really, really great that Google had someone on ground dedicating some time to YouTube front page. So I used to be able to pitch in, 3 or 4 videos on any release and get front page coverage, and you would boost your views automatically straight away, and then they would then pitch it into international territories as well if that was the best of the Australian music. That role has now gone global, and so it's based on activity and kind of search and algorithm based now. So unfortunately that's not happening. But the way in which you can use YouTube as well is make sure that you streamline all your views. So you use your YouTube video across your Facebook, your website, give that to all your media, power those views, and then you can kind of build a following within YouTube. And more you build a following, the more chances you are to yourself organically get to that front page and on those spotlights, etc. So just streamline everything that you can.
There's also a company called Viral, and basically you can pay them Viral, VIROOL.com, and basically you can submit your video, and you basically, it's kind of like Facebook or Google advertising, like a pay-per-click or pay-per-impressions kind of thing, where you can decide how much money you want to spend, and then they'll put it through their system, and then it'll get you views and stuff. So if you were, say, to take your song to, if you're going to take a single to radio and you wanted to have a YouTube clip with, say, 20,000 hits before you went in there, you might use a service like this before you go in, and yeah, you choose how much you want to spend.
But the real views, or is it?
They're real views.
Real views.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did on Spender campaign, that we actually went and did an international premiere on a really kind of niche blog out of Austria, and just through one blast in their network we got 16,000 views overnight. So it's kind of going in there and finding the right placement for your video yourself for your own marketing. So you can boost your views automatically if you're a bit smart about the placement.
Are there any kind of programs or tools that you guys use to analyse kind of the interactions that you use on Twitter and Facebook? For example, Facebook Insights will kind of give you a bit of feedback on whether what you're posting is working or whether it's not working. And I know Hootsuite also kind of provides some of that. Is there any other programs like that you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of them out there. I think my personal favourites are like Sprout Social, Agora Pulse.
Next Big Sound, Stratagem, that does kind of Instagram analytics for you as well. Allows you to work your Instagram online from a comments and engagement level as well. They're kind of the two that I mainly use.
Crowd Booster for Twitter is also good.
Crowd Boost.
Crowd Booster.
Crowd Booster.
For Twitter. It shows you actually impressions and your most popular tweets and all that stuff that Twitter doesn't give you organically yet.
What do you think about social media pushing bands up into like a stratosphere that maybe they're not quite ready for? And does it have an impact on longevity?
I think it really depends on what the band does after they've gotten that audience. Obviously, there's dirty tactics that you can use, but 5 Seconds of Summer in particular, and I'm not sure if everyone here knows this band, they supported One Direction on their tour, so that was a big, deal for them. And they didn't just walk into a record label either. Then they actually went and got a decent manager, and then sort of did the game, and then sort of got professional and made themselves into a band that would be easy to sign. So, and they've got a new single out today. It's on the front page of iTunes, I saw. So, live and breathe by that song. I mean, there's examples all through the history of, like Sandy Tom is my favourite. Do we remember Sandy Tom, who sang that song, I Wish I Was a Punk Rocker with Flowers in My Hair?
Yeah.
She was signed pretty much on the back of MySpace views, and she wasn't the kind of artist that could carry that off. But you find artists like Arctic Monkeys and Lily Allen and all these other examples of bands who, for whatever reason, because of the world that we're living in, you can make a really, really big impact if you're very, very lucky. And then if you've got the talent behind you and you can make it work, you can capitalise that for the rest of your career. So 5 Seconds of Summer, I have nothing against them. I hope that they can.
Wish them the best. Yeah.
You know, like they probably will. So
yeah. I think as well, like, say 5 Seconds of Summer had 1 million Facebook fans, but then they played a show and, 4 people went to it. You'd know that it wasn't actually organic. The fact that these kids are actually connecting and wanted, like, I think that single wasn't their first thing they ever released, but it was on the news. It was in the newspaper that they released this single a couple of weeks ago just for pre-order, and it went number 1 in 37 countries. But didn't even come out. It was just a pre-order. People actually care about them. Like, so I think it is organic when the fans actually are there. I think if you go and spend money and you do all these like kind of dirty marketing tactics and you get a big social media following, but then people don't care about your band, like you're going to go nowhere. But
I think a good sort of opposite example is OK Go. Like,
yes.
I really love that band, but that's kind of the music I like. But they're a band that everyone in this room has heard of, and I'd be surprised if more than 3 people have their albums. But they've managed to turn their career into something different, and they've worked really hard to make sure that they know that their video is viewed like 500 million times, that they're not going to get 500 million people to their shows. They probably wouldn't even get a metro if they sold out, if they came to Australia. But they can do other things, they'll get songs on soundtracks. They were the house band for a Google thing that happened because they have that reputation. They make their money through other means, and they're a really sort of different modern band in that way. So, and they're kind of not, they're probably more of an advertising agency than a band, really, but that's how they make their money. But yeah.
That's a really great example of the way in which the industry is moving. It's not necessarily about recorded sales anymore. It's about kind of the differing ways in which the business models are obtained. So sync and licensing and, brand sponsorships, all of that. Recorded sales are just such a small component now. And it's smart, business sense to look at how your art or the band or, if you're an artist yourself, it's just like, where else can I place my music and how can I work those channels? It's just the way it rolls now. It's not just about going out there and putting a song on radio and selling an album.
Yeah.
That world doesn't exist anymore.
I don't think it's existed for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you always have to have a gimmick or a USP to even sort of get further up the ladder. If you've got a band who you believe in has decent talent, but you can't seem to get them noticed enough or get them enough gigs, or...
But that sort of comes back to the OK Go thing, You can do something silly to get a whole lot of audience, but is that the right thing to keep that audience afterwards? I think we've all used the word organic a lot, and I think that is really important. If you're struggling to break through, I don't know, I think there's lots of technical things that you can do to make it easier for people to share things, ways of communicating on Facebook to make sure that you come up on feeds more, like post less, using different types of language and stuff to get people to engage more. You're seeing blogs where people say watch or listen, there's really powerful words. But at the end of the day, people are going to, I think, and I wouldn't be working in this industry if I didn't think this, we'll like things that are good, and we'll watch things that are good, and then we'll watch the next thing if it's good. And then if you manage to get a really good video across, get some views, people put links at the bottom of the video. I'm seeing a lot more people put links at the end of the actual video. That last screen, it says go to this website to find out more. Get them to sign up, like the Facebook page, and then the next video you do, you'll have a bigger audience. And it's hard work, there's no shortcut.
But then why do people love One Direction?
Because Harry Styles has kind of good hair, yeah.
Can I also just make a point on that as well? Brand is really key because, we're all pretty time poor, so we flick and we kind of move, so rapidly. If I see an image, I can kind of guess what they're going to sound like, or if I kind of read something, I kind of feel as though I know what that band is, or what if I click that link, what I'm going to going to come at me kind of thing. So I'd say that all facets of who you are needs to come down to represent the type of music and the type of band you want to be. And it's really cool to get those visual and those brand identities locked down. Like I worked with one band, which I will not say, but their logo was kind of ancient Egyptian-esque. And they were wondering why they had 2,000 Egyptian fans. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, have you not looked at your logo? And it was just simple things as to what people resonate with. And they're like, oh, it must be an Egyptian band. I'll like that. And their name was very Egyptian as well, but somehow they didn't quite work that out. But it's really, we're so visual. I know, Joe. We're so visual that we really need to see what we think we're going to hear as well. So just make sure that, your press shots, your logos, your aesthetic, your colour palette really represents everything that you want it to be from a visual perspective.
And on that, can I also say that Wikipedia is important?
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, the third search result that will come out anytime looks for your band is going to be your Wikipedia page. You'd be lucky to get someone who reads your bio and your Wikipedia page when you do an interview. They'll probably just go to the Wikipedia page these days. So you can really control the conversations you have. Make sure it's current, make sure it's mentioning your new album, link back to your website. From there, it's going to lead to hits, it's going to lead to exposure.
Sorry, just on press releases, one page, power punch, 10 things about
Keep
my
it simple.
band. People don't have all day to read about your band and the background about the band and how amazing the band is and what they've done for their childhood. It really, really does need to be concise. It needs to be upfront. It needs to be in people's faces straight away. And, I think, again, the best piece of advice is leave some of those, if you've got 5 words, take 4 of them away and just have that one key word that kind of represents who you are. And, less is sometimes better. Yeah.
I also think, to your question about should you be doing a gimmick or what can you do for cut through, is I try and foster communities. So, for example, if you're a band, well, I have a friend's band, and they're not signed to any label or anything. And a couple of years ago, they had a mate that worked at Billabong, so he put one of their songs on the Billabong Pro at Chopu, which is a big surf contest they have over there every year, and one of the songs was used on this YouTube clip. I got viewed over like 300,000 times because it was like one of the biggest days of contests they've ever had. They ended up selling a bunch of EPs off the back of that, but also now when they tour Australia, heaps of surfers always come to their shows because they saw them there. So now they've got this whole like surf community behind them, and they're kind of part of that community, and it makes a lot of sense. And a lot of bands, like a lot of punk bands in the 90s, like Pennywise and Blink-182, before they were playing the radio here, they were on these surf videos, and they'd come over and play like, the premieres of certain surf videos in like Manly and Newcastle and all these places. And they had all these fans before like anyone in the mainstream knew who they were. So I think instead of trying to think of something like gimmicky, just figure out who your audience is and find those blogs and those websites and those filmmakers and this community and like foster that. Because that's organic growth, and that's when people will get interested.
Blogs are so important for that. There's not a niche out there that hasn't got a half-decent blog, and the people behind them love music. They want to share your video. They want to be the first to talk about new bands. So, and there's, great old country blogs, great metal blogs, great pop blogs, and those people are happy to get an email or happy to have a video shared on their Facebook page. Try to talk to those people.
Okay.
I got another one. On the idea of gimmicks as well, can you ever really plan to go viral?
I hate that word.
Yeah. It's the worst, but
I think you can. Yeah, I think you can prepare and do your best to make it easy for things to go viral. Yeah, shareable, maybe a better word, and to capitalize on things. So I did work on an OK Go record when they did. No, it was the one after The Colour of the Sky, and and they had a great dog video with dogs dancing and stuff like that. And we deliberately kept some of the information about how that film clip was made secret, and we let people go, there's no way that's a one-take shot. There's no way that they could have done that. That's the cut here. And we didn't answer anyone's questions to keep that alive. And then we talked to a very specific blog and we gave them the behind-the-scenes thing, how much dog food was used that day, which take it was, all that sort of stuff, to keep the content alive, to keep the conversation going. So there's that, you can't just let it go and say goodbye and hope it finds its way home. There are ways of keeping that conversation going, and posting it twice isn't a crime. You know, like there's all these sort of things where you don't have to be shy about it. Ask people to retweet. If you're a band starting out, it's like asking a band to come to see you play. Ask your friends who are half your Facebook audience, we got a new video, can you guys please help us spread the word? That's what your friends are there to do, and they like you and they will do that. So there are ways of doing it, and then all those stuff we talked about linking back and making sure you capture that audience when you get it.
Now YouTube, instead of considering a short viewing of say 5 seconds as a viewing, that it's actually has to reach a percentage of the length of the clip. And have you been responding to that at all, or have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean that is true. I think Google barely even brings you up on search results if you have a video that's less than a minute long, because they're a company that sells ads, and they are going to target videos that make people stay there and watch. And so your engagement, but I think it's a little bit more than just on a video basis. I think it's a channel basis, much like Facebook's got this thing called EdgeRank, right? Where, you know, if you're the kind of person who's posting things that gets lots of comments all the time on Facebook, your page comes up in search more. If you're a great channel, and we all know those YouTube ones like Funny or Die or whatever, which it's such engagement, they do come up first in search results. We at Channel V, we don't really put our 30-second ads and stuff just on YouTube just for the sake of having them, because it drives our numbers down. We don't come up in search results. Even when we have a great video, YouTube just has algorithms that look at our channel and go, wow, like 5 out of every 10 videos these guys put up are 30-second things that no one watches. This channel's kind of crap. Let's not bring them up in search results. So optimizing what you do in that world, yeah, is important. And making sure the content is good.
I was just going to say, YouTube have just put out a how-to manual on how to optimize your videos, and it's really quite interesting. I think it affects your Google ranking and your YouTube ranking, but the most important thing I took away from it was don't just put a video up and wait for the plays. You've actually got to engage with the people who are commenting and liking and all that kind of stuff. So again, it kind of comes back to engagement.
It's its own channel. People subscribe for a reason, because they want to hear or see what you have to say. So things like, you know, hangouts or live Q&As that are recorded and posted, and, you know, behind the scenes or interviews that are captured. You know, you have to put engaging content out there so people are actually watching the whole thing. And, you know, rather than just putting a video up there, you know, think about the strategy and what's being said in there and the reasons why that video is going up there. And, you know, automatically you'll hook people in and get them to watch it the whole way through.
Because I've just put a YouTube video up, and it's come back with saying more information needed to consider your video monetization. What does that mean?
So anyone can sign up to be on YouTube, and then if you get to a certain point, which is really easy to get to, you can monetize your content. So which is you can make money off it. You can serve ads on it. Google is an ad company. They've got a lot of ads to play before the actual video that you put up, if you want them to, and ads all around it. But you've got to have the rights, and you'll probably just reach that point, and then you've actually just got to add a few more things to Google to verify who you are, maybe what country you're from. Maybe it's the point where you actually have to finally give Google your phone number.
Would you recommend me to do that?
I don't know your channel, but maybe. Like, there's no reason not to make money from it, except if you want to keep those videos clean and let people go straight to the content, because your point is to get people to see that to push it somewhere else.
Can I just do something, a complete aside, but the whole talk about monetization and streaming, and people don't really know how many streams you need to get in order to make money. Like, it's probably one of the questions that I get asked the most. Like, you know, I've got 5 streams, how much money will I make? And there's a really interesting article that just only got pushed out a couple of days ago, but a girl called Kay Keating actually released her P&L. So how many singles she sold, how many albums she sold, how many streams on Spotify, and actually the revenue dollars that she actually achieved via her portfolio of music out there. Have a bit of a Google and have a look at the spreadsheet, and it'll actually put some of this streaming and monetization into perspective for you as well. Like, you need a lot of streams. I think it's like, God, I'm not going to say the numbers because I'm on video, but literally it's like the kind of million mark for a $5,000 return. So have a look at this P&L and really understand the amount of effort that you're going into, because a lot of of the work that we do, there's not a lot of return on investment. So you have to be smart. We also manage your kind of time and energies in order to kind of get the most out of maybe your P&L for your business, for your artist, or for your craft.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin all your videos with a 10-second ad in front if you're only going to make 3 cents. So
it's like a company like, say, Toyota or something might have a new car coming out and they want to advertise against Justin Bieber channel. They'll go and do a deal directly with YouTube and say, we'll pay this much. So the Justin Bieber channel is actually getting a much higher split than just say the random ads that will play against your ordinary channel. So yeah, just depends.
I think we might wrap it up. Just wanted to say thanks so much for coming tonight and giving us your time. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to hang out for a bit, if there's anyone that has any one-on-one questions, please feel free. Thanks to Cafe Lounge for having us, and Louis, wherever he is. Oh, there he is. And the staff here. It was great. And yeah, thanks so much for coming. You can check out our website, join our mailing list. If you've got any suggestions regarding future workshops, ideas, please let us know. And yeah, I think that's about it, really. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.